all of the insane craziness coming out of the backstage rumors and speculations about AEW. Of course, we've been hearing all kinds of things. Everything just seems to be leaking out like crazy these last couple weeks about AEW. And it really couldn't have come at a worse time for AEW because they have Triple H taking over WWE now. So all eyes are on Triple H. And is he going to do a good job over there? And what kind of changes is he making? And that sort of thing. And people are paying close attention. And now is not the time that you want to start having rumors getting out there that your whole company's falling apart backstage and everybody wants to get out or people aren't happy there anymore. It's chaos. It's not just one thing anymore, right? I think, rumors started to fly around the time that Punk did his infamous little shoot ski on Hangman Page a couple weeks ago. And everybody was wondering where the fuck that came from. And then all these leaks started leaking out, right? CM Punk's unhappy backstage. He's voiced his discontent. He's even threatened to not show up or just quit. Some people have said Hangman Page didn't know about it. He's not happy about it. Other people aren't happy. Colt Cabana, he's almost got fired and got demoted to Ring of Honor because of CM Punk. All of this drama around CM Punk, and then of course he loses in spectacularly short fashion to Jon Moxley. It's all up in the air, and then even before that it was the MJF situation, right? We were all hearing about MJF being unhappy backstage, and then these people that were getting cut, like a Joey Janela, or some other fuck, who's Marco Stunt was another one. People saying that they weren't properly communicated to by Tony Khan. That Jonathan Gresham was another one. Where everybody's saying, the communication is shit. So we're starting to see these little cracks, no bigger than MJF. And then once the CM Punk thing happened, the floodgates just opened and we just got all kinds of craziness. And it's coming in hot. Now it's not just Punk. It's we're hearing Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara got into it backstage, where Sammy called Eddie fat in a promo, and Eddie didn't like that too much and took exception to that and tried to pie face Sammy backstage. Reports are conflicting on whether he was actually able to complete said pie face or not. But then, Eddie was quietly suspended from AEW. He's now back. Their match that was announced for All Out appears to be off now, perhaps. All up in the air, all chaos. And then Eddie Kingston, went on record and said he shouldn't have did it and that he just wants it all to go away. But then Sammy Guevara comes out with his own fucking statement, and he's giving his side of the story after it should have all just been said and done and wiped under the rug. Then you got fucking Disco Inferno throwing his 2 cents in on Twitter. Him and Eddie got into it a little bit. Disco jumped in and had to say that, that maybe Eddie needs to look at himself in the mirror and go on a diet or something. And then Eddie kind of retweeted and bitch slapped Disco down pretty quick, talking about how he heard stories that Big Show farted in his face and stuff like that. Eddie didn't hold back there. Eddie's not somebody you want to go take jabs with on Twitter, okay? There's few people that you want to get into a Twitter joust with. Eddie Kingston, not one of them. And probably not a physical joust either. But then the drama continues, because we're also hearing now that more heat is on Thunder Rosa backstage. We heard a little bit of the sandbagging. I did cover that about a month ago or so, with reports that Thunder Rosa was sandbagging people in her matches, and just kind of being extra stiff with people and just really being not being a team player in the ring, and starting to get a lot of heat backstage from the women's division in regards to that. Now we're seeing that she broke fucking Jamie Hayter's nose, and Jamie Hayter's pissed off at her, and rumors were that Thunder Rosa was legit hiding in a bathroom backstage from Jamie Hayter. Now, some would say, oh, I thought Thunder Rosa was a tough chick. She was in MMA, and she's tough and she's a badass. That may be for most women, but Jamie Hayter has quite the reputation for being just about the biggest beast of a woman that you can possibly get into a tussle with. Not in size, not like the native beast Nyla Rose or anything like that, but just that Jamie Hayter is a tough, badass, strong chick who is just not somebody that you're going to want to fuck with. She has quite the reputation of being a tough chick, and apparently Thunder Rosa didn't want any piece of Jamie Hayter. And Jamie Hayter, what was she going to do? Beat Thunder's ass backstage in front of Tony Khan? It's all chaos. It's all nuts going backstage. Apparently Tony Khan had a big meeting. He had a full talent meeting where he kind of laid out the ways to communicate, the chain of command and all of that good stuff. He did set up this whole new team around him with Tony Schiavone and Sanjay Dutt and Pat Buck and a couple others, Madison Rain for the women and that sort of thing. Not just being coaches, but Christopher Daniels still involved in talent relations. This team is set up to kind of help with the communication factor, help pass things along, help relate to the talent, as it were, for talent relations. And then apparently the Young Bucks threw in their 2 cents in this talent meeting and said that their office is always open if somebody wants to go talk to them. And apparently Kenny Omega gave him a little tough love and told him to straighten the fuck up. Get your shit together. It's madness. What's going on over there? And how did it fall apart so quickly? Because all we heard for years was that this was all friends wrestling, right? Everybody loves everybody. It's the happiest wrestling place on earth. Everybody walks in and they're just so happy to be here. And I love it so much. And I'm just smiling. And it's all just falling apart. Now everybody's unhappy with their spot. Everybody wants to go back to Papa H over at the WWE. Tony Khan is not communicating with everybody. Everybody's fighting backstage. Everybody hates everybody now. So what exactly is going on? And more importantly, how do you fix it? Before we do, I'm going to go in and have a sip of this here Bang. This here podcast sponsored by Bang. It's not sponsored. I wish it was, though. Matter of fact, my very first episode ever, that was going to be my gimmick that I was going to pitch for a Bang sponsorship every episode, and then I think I dropped it by the second episode because it's just not going to happen. And let's face it. But I do love me some Bang. It's good shit. But anyway, how do you fix the problems that are going on in AEW and what's going on with it? How did it all happen? Is it that the inmates are running the asylum? Is Tony giving people too much freedom? That certainly could be the case. That was at one point that was the draw for AEW. Everybody wanted to go to AEW so that they could have the creative freedom that they weren't getting in WWE. Everything was ultra scripted in WWE. With Vince McMahon especially, every last word was pre-thought out for you. You were given a gimmick in a lot of cases. And if you didn't like it or you didn't fit in, you were fired, basically. Look at Karrion Kross. He came up with, the perfect, everything already perfectly in the can, perfectly groomed to be a WWE superstar, and then he got made into a demolition gladiator and took Scarlett away from him, and everything fell apart. So Vince was a very difficult guy to work with, and everybody wanted to leave and go to the place where they had the creative freedom. Well, now it seems to be that maybe there's too much creative freedom. Maybe people are just kind of backstage running the asylum. There's nobody in control. There's nobody to put their foot down and give the final say. Now, I'll push back against that a little bit because by all accounts, Tony Khan has not been afraid to put his foot down in the past when he needs to. I mean, even look at Eddie Kingston. He got suspended over the Sammy Guevara thing. Sammy has gotten in trouble in the past. He's had to go to some sort of counseling, sensitivity training or whatever. I don't think that Tony's just a pushover. I do think that people maybe don't respect Tony. I don't think he commands the respect that a Vince McMahon had or a Triple H has. I don't know if it's just because he hasn't been around long enough. It's because maybe he's not one of the boys. He's a little bit unproven in the business, or maybe just because he's a huge nerdy mark. Who knows? But I do think that that's part of it. I think guys are more likely to, let's face it, like think about when you were in school, right? And you had a substitute teacher, not that Tony's the substitute, but you perceived the substitute as the weaker teacher, right? Unless you had like one of the really mean substitutes. You're like, oh shit, this guy's not going to put up with anything. And she's going to send us to the office and all that stuff. But for the most part, when you got a substitute in, you felt like you could kind of walk all over her a little bit. You started talking with your friends more, started not paying attention as much, you started cracking jokes. You were a little bit more of a class clown because you knew you could get away with it because the substitute wasn't going to put their foot down like the real teacher would be. And I think there's a bit of that with Tony Khan. I think these people that have worked with Vince for all these years, and now all of a sudden they're in AEW from WWE. I feel like they feel like it's a little bit of a pushover or an easy pass, a cakewalk. And I don't know that that's the case, but I do get that impression to a certain extent. Another one of the problems seems to be just the huge over-bloated talent roster that doesn't get the proper TV time. Tony can sit back, and he has tried to justify this by saying, oh, well, I don't have all the TV time in the world, so guys got to fight for their TV time. First of all, you don't need to hire 80 million people if you don't have enough TV time to satiate all these people. Now, I am not one of the people that thinks everybody has to be on every episode. I actually like the idea of rotating talents around. Again, I always go back to UFC as an example because it's what reality is, right? UFC is real. If the WWE or AEW was real, it would be UFC to a certain extent, right? UFC, you don't see Conor McGregor on every show. Even though he's your top draw, he's not on every show. He's not on many shows, actually. I wouldn't advise it to that extent where you only see your top guys a couple times a month. But you get what I'm saying. Every other week is fine. Take a week off. That they do something big one week. They don't have to be there the next week. And you can keep them alive by airing a replay of it. Here's what happened last week when fucking Christian and Jungle Boy jerked each other off in front of Luchasaurus. Just show the highlight, you know what I mean? Or era pre-recorded promo, get these people backstage, get them a promo, and you don't even need to fly them in the next week, you know what I mean? Record it the week before while they're there, and then just, give them the week off. And it's not a punishment. It's not, oh, you're not using me. It's just we're rotating people. And that's actually good for the longevity of the wrestlers, and it keeps them, not getting played out. If you don't go away, how can I miss you? That kind of thing, Another thing is that you just don't hire that many people. What's the point of signing everybody and their mom other than just trying to, it's a little bit of WCW-esque, it's just to sign them just to say that you have them. Oh, I got this other big star. And to bring them in for the big pop. Oh, look at this guy is all elite now. And now you're never going to see him again. And we're never going to use him properly. Blah, 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 blah. There was no need for any of that. Look at Ruby Soho. How often do we see Ruby Soho on anything ever? And the women's division's lacking. That's the other thing. I'll get to that in a minute. But the overbloated talent roster, I think Tony could stand to make some cuts or just not renew some contracts. There are rumors that they're going to be adding another hour of television or another new show. Maybe that's Ring of Honor. I don't know why we need more AEW TV because nobody watches Rampage. I could see him Tony trying to justify wanting more TV because then he can fit some more of these guys on TV. But that's not the problem. The problem is you have too many guys, and then you don't even use them properly when you do put them on. Look at Rampage. It's such a underutilized show. Why do you even have that show? You have this whole third hour of TV, and it started off hot. Fuck, the second episode was the first dance with CM Punk's big return. All you need to do is book a giant main event there and make things that happen on that show relevant. And it's become the point where it's a completely skippable show. Anything that happens there, it's not part of the major storyline. It doesn't move anything forward. It's not must-see TV in any way, shape, or form. The only thing that makes it good is if Tony books a match on it that you have to see. I think, recently Claudio was on there defending the ROH title or having some kind of spotlight match on there, and I don't even remember who he was facing. I remember it was a match that I had interest in seeing, but it was completely forgettable because it didn't mean anything. Moxley versus Mance Warner. That's another thing. Why are you bringing guys in that don't even work for you? I actually liked that at first. I liked that idea of guys on the indies getting a shot, bringing somebody in with a little bit of indie value. Mance Warner is a well-known guy, and in a vacuum, Mance Warner versus Jon Moxley is a hell of a match to book. So if you have a little wiggle room to say, hey, we're going to bring in this guy for a special one-off fight or whatever, that's actually kind of cool. I don't mind that. And it's different than WWE because, WWE's guys are very in their own bubble. They're really locked up tight, and they're in that WWE universe and in that WWE structure. I like that AEW is a company that exists to the outside world to an extent, and that people from the outside wrestling world, it acknowledges that other wrestling companies exist, and it brings other people in from other companies or the outside world. You've heard of Mance Warner before, perhaps, and now here's old Mance Warner on AEW TV. In a bubble, that's fine. But when you have 35 other guys that would gladly love a match against Jon Moxley in a main event spot on national TV, like Miro. I've been talking about Miro. Where the fuck has Miro been? Oh, he comes back to fucking save Sting against Malachi Black or whatever. Who gives a shit, right? That's not good use for Miro. Miro's a killer. Miro's a beast. Miro should be in the title picture. What are you fucking doing with Miro? What are you doing with the House of Black? How often do we even see those guys? They had some good booking of Brody King, but then there's no follow-up on it, And I don't think Malachi Black, before the whole House of Black thing even started, really got a fair shake. He got the big pop when he came in, and then he was basically downgraded to a mid-carder almost instantly. You really could have pushed during Hangman's reign. You easily could have did a build to a Hangman versus Malachi Black world title match, and then you could have filtered Malachi Black down to the House of Black stuff and the more tag team trio stuff, and then you could have justified it. I used him in a main event spot. When you're filtering people through, you're rotating people. He just came in and did nothing. Same with Ruby Soho. I guess Ruby Soho had a crack at the women's title or got a couple main event spots, but now she's standing backstage next to Ortiz. And, I guess she's got an injury maybe or whatever. That could be part of it, but she's not featured at all. She's a lackey for fucking Eddie Kingston. It's shameful is what it really is. And there's a whole other slew of guys that you can point to. Will Hobbs, criminally underutilized. This guy, he's got a nice feud going with Ricky Starks right now going on to the pay-per-view. I'm glad that they're going to get pay-per-view time. But even when they were together as a team, they were off TV many weeks in a row. You got to have guys like this on your TV. A Ricky Starks. Why? You utilize these people to their max. I feel like, you can pick out any number of people, and I've only picked out a few, and we don't want to be here all day, but I feel like AEW has such a... Adam Cole. What the fuck has he done? And I know he's injured, too, along with, Kyle O'Reilly and stuff, but what the fuck did they do with Adam Cole since he's been back? Oh, he won the fucking Owen Hart gimmick? Meh, who cares? He should have been used in a world title picture as well. He, I think, had a quick feud with Hangman, and then he was swept under the rug as well. And, you could debate me on all of those, but from where I'm sitting, from my perspective, a lot of the talent roster in AEW just isn't being used to the fullest extent. And, you know, you see, and I'm a huge Danny Garcia fan. I love Daniel Garcia. I'm actually kind of a fan of 2.0, even though Matt Menard kind of bugs me a little bit, but I think that's the point. He's supposed to bug me. Almost to the point of go away heat, but not quite. You know, he's a bit much, you know. You know what I'm saying? I love those guys. I love Daniel Garcia and 2.0, but they've had a bajillion main event matches on AEW where a Miro could have been slotted in, or a Malachi Black could have been slotted in. And even like a Darby Allin really hasn't been used all that great lately, other than, you know, like I said, him and Brody had a decent little feud, but it was in a bubble. You know, you don't really, I feel like, you know, when you look at the big picture, Darby Allin's star power has been significantly diminished. I don't think Tony's maximizing the talent that he has. The women's roster, criminally underutilized, underbooked. You know, they're getting barely any time on the shows. They're not getting highlighted. They're not getting major pushes. You got a Jade Cargill. You got a Britt Baker. I think Thunder Rosa's pretty well been a flop as champion, which sucks too, because I loved Thunder Rosa. You know, when she first came in, that was my bitch. You know, and when she got signed from the NWA, I was excited. I genuinely enjoy her matches. I feel like, you know, though the women say that she's a bit stiff, I find her to be in the ring more credible than a lot of the women too. So maybe they're just not used to getting hit. I like that she's a little bit physical. She puts on good matches, but her character is not getting over. And maybe it is the sandbagging stuff. Who knows? But it's time to make a change there. But you got a Britt Baker, and you got a Jade Cargill, and I really honestly think you can build a whole huge segment of your show around these characters and what they're doing. And you know, use a Ruby Soho better. You know, get these women in the mix, and Athena, get her in the mix better. You know, utilize these talents to strengthen your women's roster and make them huge stars, because they are huge stars, but they're just being underutilized right now. You look at anybody that's had any kind of momentum in AEW, it seems like it all just kind of gets squandered. Even the MJF thing, you know, I thoroughly believe this all to be a work. I feel like there was a heated debate between MJF and Tony Khan, and I feel like it was worked out, and because it leaked out to the internet, it was now being used as a storyline. And I also applauded AEW at first for playing off the realism. You know, you start to hear people, oh, you know, MJF, that was the biggest shit. Everybody's talking about it. Why don't they follow up on it next week? Well, because when you follow up on it next week, now it's not real. You know, when CM Punk walked out of the WWE, he was back on WWE TV like the week or 2 weeks later. Like, you know, they missed a huge opportunity when that happened to have him go defend the WWE title in Ring of Honor, to let him go over to New Japan, to let him work the indies and just show up and get the video footage, call these indie companies, work with them, get the camera footage of them wrestling in a Ring of Honor ring. You know, like, you're missing the boat on some of this stuff, man. But I feel like, so I plotted it at first with MJF, but now it's been too long, and I think they're either waiting for Punk to come back or sweeps week, you know, for the ratings, you know, where ratings really matter in TV. You know, we're going to pop a rating by bringing MJF back in. But I feel like that's been squandered a little bit too. Now, certainly when he comes back, it's going to pop the company again. And, you know, they'll do some good ratings and stuff. But it hasn't really fully been capitalized on to this point. Even CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, these are some of the biggest stars in wrestling history. And they were brought in, and it's just kind of like, meh. You know, it was a huge deal when they're brought in, but now they both just kind of feel like just another guy, you know. It's just all a big mess with AEW. So how can they fix it? Well, you gotta, Tony's got to be a boss. Tony's got to put his foot down backstage, and he's to start throwing his nuts on the table and maybe even making an example out of some people. You know, even if it's CM Punk at the highest level. assuming that that's not a work, what's going on there. But Tony needs to show that he is the boss. Not necessarily just be a dick or strike fear in the hearts of everybody, but let people know in no uncertain terms. You're not going to fuck around with me, and what I say goes. And leave it at that. And I can be nice as hell and easy to work with as long as you're working within those boundaries. But fuck with me and find out. You know what I mean? Tony needs to put a little bit of that out there. Rampage needs to be fixed. Rampage is a shit show. It's a god-awful show that is completely missable. When I say shit show, I mean it has good matches on it, but the ratings have been sliding. They don't put anything that's must-see on there. They don't develop any really meaningful storylines on there. There's no reason to tune in to Rampage, ever. I watched Rampage for the first month or so, and then I stopped watching, and I haven't watched it since. It's been on for a year now. I don't watch it. What's the point? Why would I go out of my way to watch it? You know? Dynamite! I've been missing Dynamites lately. And I never used to miss a Dynamite. It's just, I don't know. It's starting to slip. It's not must-see anymore. So Dynamite's a good way to strengthen that up. Put some of your main event talent on Dynamite or on Rampage. Make it must-see. And utilize that time to use talent that you're not using on Dynamite or that you didn't use on Dynamite this week. You know, rotate people around, get some big main events in there, get title matches on there, get things that you must see happen only on Rampage. Before you bring in a whole nother show, we don't need another show. You think you need another show because you have a giant bloated roster that's complaining that they're not getting enough TV time. What you need to do is use your TV time properly. And they're just not doing that over in AEW. The other thing is that they need to probably bring in some writers. Tony Khan, despite what Dave Meltzer thinks and what Tony Khan must think about himself when he looks in the mirror, he is not Booker of the Year. You know, I think AEW has booked some amazing matches. I think they are really good at putting matches that you want to see. And I'll even say this. I think they're better at, you know, when they do things like a Daniel Garcia in the main event against a Bryan Danielson. I think they're good at using their younger talent and making a younger talent against a top star feel like a big deal. And where it's going to elevate this younger star a little bit. You know, Jungle Boy got a lot of push from that early on where he was in the ring with a lot of top people, and he would never ever win, but he was getting them just a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little closer. And I like all that. That's good character building. So there's good stuff going on there, but I feel like he needs a couple writers on hand because he can't do it all himself. And it doesn't mean that the whole show needs to be scripted and turn it into WWE. It just means I think maybe he needs to delegate some of his creative, come up with some ideas for other people. Because, you know, sometimes these guys can't come up with ideas for themselves properly, or the ideas that they do come up with suck. You know, it's great for people that want to be creative and come up with their own ideas, and that Tony lets them for the most part, unless he just hates it. But what about the guy that's not that creative, and he's just more of a tell me what to do, boss, and I'm going to go do it to the best of my ability? You know, it wouldn't hurt to have a couple guys on hand to just be like, hey man, I'm here for you if you want some ideas. You know, you put one guy to write for the main event, one guy to write for like the undercard, a guy to write for the women, a guy to write for the tag teams. That's it. Get a couple of those guys to be pitching ideas to Tony, and he can take them, he can leave them, and then they can also be there at TVs to help guys with their promos, not write shit, not handing out scripts, not here's what you're going to be doing today, but hey, how can I help you get what you want to get across to the TV people better? You know what I mean? I think the storytelling just lacks there a little bit. They book good matches. They do not book good stories. There are some good stories. There are other horrible stories. And there's just no story at all. I think everybody... What makes good TV is every character has a path. You almost need to, and that's something that, you know, is easier to do with seasons than a week-to-week thing, where you set your character story arc from start to finish. And if you need to write your TV from All Out to All Out, or Double or Nothing to Double or Nothing, or however, even just from All Out to Double or Nothing, or pick your length of time that you want to do a story arc for a character, and then put them on a story arc. It just seems like there's not a lot to cling on to or want to turn into, unless you really want to see this match. This is a dope match, so I want to see this match. Then there's no other reason to really tune in and watch AEW. There's no, oh my God, I have to see what's going to happen next week. That rarely happens. It's rare that happens. I guess Punk, right now, Punk's got the world buzzing, that whole Punk Moxley thing. But in general, that's just something that AEW's weak at. They need to get their roster under control. They have too many people. At this point, they need to start looking at either flat out releasing people, or at least looking at what contracts are going to expire and let them expire. I don't know what his budget is or whatever, but that doesn't matter. The problem is he's bringing guys in for the, oh my God, he's all elite. And then you get the big pop, the shock and awe pop, and then they don't do anything with these people. Let's start building around some of these people. Let's start telling stories with these people. Let's start using them on shows, rotating them in and out, so you don't have Daniel Garcia and 2.0 on every single main event of every single show of every week. Let's slide in some other talent to fill those spots and get them on TV. I think there needs to be more communication with the talent. If they're disgruntled, why? Why are you disgruntled, and how can we make you undisgruntled? If it's more money, sorry, I can't help you. Your contract is what your contract's for. You are free to, go somewhere else if that's what you want to do when your contract's up. You know what I mean? But if it's creative, okay, do you have some ideas? Where would you like to be, or where do you see yourself going? Have these talks with people. Have meetings. I know Tony Khan's a busy guy, but that's why he needs a little bit of a team around him. He can't do everything himself. Not just writers, but even like a little bit of an inner circle. And maybe that's what this, with adding Tony Schiavone to his inner circle, and adding Pat Buck and Sanjay Dutt and these people, maybe that, maybe this will help change things in the long run. But, the EVPs, where have they been? Let's get Kenny and let's get the Bucks in there to talk with some of these talents. Find out what they're doing, what they're happy about, what they're not happy about. Some of these bullshit games that get played, like with FTR, why are they not the AEW Tag Team Champions? Why are they not going into All Out to face the Young Bucks? The rubber match, Young Bucks, FTR 3 for all of the gold, winner takes all. I mean, these stories write themselves, and then they just fucking avoid them because of egos or because of whatever. It's blatant at this point. All of that shit needs to be nipped in the bud, and all of that needs to be tightened up. And I think we all gotta take it with a grain of salt, because AEW is a new company, and because they're so big, and because they're on TV, and because looks-wise, talent, star power-wise, everything, they're basically on the same level as WWE. But they're a newer company. They don't have the years of infrastructure there. WWE's already gone through all the growing pains. Every company's going to have growing pains. Tony Khan's not going to necessarily foresee every single issue that he's going to run into until he runs into them. He's just got to be good at dealing with them once they come along, which he just hasn't been. And I think he's spread thin. I think he needs a good team around him. He needs a little bit of an inner circle to delegate tasks to. QT, I think, is another one close to him. Delegate to these people. Bring on a couple writers to be both pitching you ideas and just working with the talent to help develop their ideas. And that's what we need. And you need people that are specifically dedicated to the women's division, for example. It's all they do is they pitch and write and help for the women. And again, that's not to script everything. That's just to put some more structure on the show to make it a little bit more, what's going to happen next week? Add a little bit more character arc to people other than, oh my God, they're in AEW, look who's all elite, and then, whatever happened to that person? They're in a backstage segment standing around with their dick in their hand. Those are the things that I'm seeing right off the bat. And if there are cancers in the locker room, like a CM Punk, if he's really like starting to go in there and be like, well, I don't want Colt Cabana around. You need to fire Colt Cabana. Well, fuck you. All right. I'm the boss here. And Colt Cabana worked here before I ever brought you in, and you knew that. So you chose to sign here. I'm not just going to fire the dude now that you're here. Sorry and shit. You know what I mean? Deal with it. Now, if they're not getting along and it's become, if both parties were fine with it, but now they're beefing and you need to, figure it out how to separate them or something, then yes, Colt Cabana is the lesser of the two for your wallet. And then at that point, seniority doesn't matter. It's who's the better choice to keep around for your company. But Tony Khan, he's in a bad place. And I think he really needs to. It is a good sign that he's recognizing this stuff. It's a good sign that he promoted all these people. It's a good sign, Tony Schiavone, as I covered last week, did a podcast where he talked about, what kind of his role will be in AEW and how it came about. And all of that's good shit. I like that. It's a good sign that they're at least recognizing that they have a problem. But this is not good news, especially with Triple H on the rise over in WWE. And not that he's perfect either. There's some things that could be said over on that side of the boat as well. Like, do people really give a shit about Dexter Lumis? Do they? But at least there's some kind of story going on over there. So AEW is in a bad way. Lots of chaos going around backstage. Hopefully they can get their shit together. Pull it together, pull their heads out of their ass collectively, and, instead of steering that ship right into an iceberg like WCW, hopefully they can this is just growing pains that any new company is going to run into issues and they're able to work through them and be a better, stronger company because of it. But fuck, who knows, man? Hey, thanks for checking out that clip. Don't forget to check out other clips here on the channel. And while you're there, throw a like, throw a subscribe. And don't forget to check out full episodes each and every Sunday of the Pro Wrestling Podcast.